I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, muchas gracias to everyone for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, as the love and support everyone shares and sends my way. From the heart, thank you. Also, do please like, share, subscribe, and hype to this video to help the message get out a little bit more in the hopes it could become something positive. Thank you. Well, everyone, on this one, I'll take you back a couple years back, you know, right before we would end up out there in Oaxaca, and everything went down the drain, you could say. But basically, we're uh, we're in Culiacan, you know. We recently had been released from Mazatlan, and we're just blasting, relaxing, trying to catch some air, after being in there. Even though it's not as bad as other places, it's still, Mexican prisons are they're different. But anyways, as we're there, I talked about it in a video before, right? There was a conflict with gente nueva flipping, right? From Sinaloa, they wanted to start doing their own thing, and it was due to their leader, Juarez, and we went out and supported one time, supported Daryl, right? You guys remember that story? And anyways, this time we're sitting down there, and you know, gente nueva aligned themselves again with more so with Chapos, right? And they were going to war real bad with mexicles, from Juarez. Mexicles from Juarez is basically a gang, right? That is out of Juarez in Texas, and they're paisas, but they're a gang. They don't like Aztecas or none of that. At one point, they ran with Sinaloa too, till they decided to align themselves with the Linea. And anyways, while this was going on, right? Since at one point they were with Sinaloa, there was a communication there, right? So a meeting was established, you know, and it was none of us were the ones that were gonna go speak, right? Everything went to hell because of me, but I wasn't the main one. We were just gonna go support, the individuals that was gonna do the speaking, which at this point it shouldn't matter, right? But anyways, El Nueve, right? You guys know who that is, and he went. He was gonna do the speaking, and we were just gonna go there and support. Just four of us, And it was me, a homie Spanky from 18. I talked to him. I talked to you about him being in a prison with us, and two camaradas from north side of Bowling Park. You know, there was actually quite a few homies from Bowling Park, right? But kid was doing his thing somewhere else, and this one that went with us was the two homies. One was kid's cousin, Mono, and the other one, I'm not gonna say it's Placaso. We'll just call him Juan because it was pretty something. But anyways, there were two firme camaradas from Northside Bowling. Again, the homie from 18 and myself. We were the ones that got sent up there, right? Amongst numerous of people from Sinaloa, right? More so Chapo's faction, right? Again, we were just there, like you could say, to show support, that we were with them and to open up them doors, right? That was the whole objective, open up them doors, pick up the trust, and of course we were going to build our pipeline, you know, and but the prices were going to be there, and if we needed it over there, we were able to tap into the avenue that was already established by them. But anyways, we would end up going right, but we weren't going to meet in Juarez, no Chihuahua. Chihuahua was more gente nueva. Juarez was more them, right? La Línea, Aztecas, mexicles. So we met in a little town in between called Villa Humada. It's this small little town that's right in between Chihuahua and Juarez. And to my surprise, I didn't really know too much about mexicles, right? And when we got there, no, before we got there, excuse me, uh, Mono was the one that knew the most, the homie. And he started telling me, yeah, these guys, they run like norteños. So I told him, what you mean? Yeah, mexicles, they do all that present, lieutenant, sergeant, that's how they direct themselves. Tell him, oh, okay. And and we just left it at that, right? We're supposed to meet two lieutenants and a sergeant. You know, Wessels was the main one of the primary fool that was going to represent them there. And then Charro, he was another lieutenant. And the sergeant, used to call him Víbora or El Ocho, right? And anyways, we get there, and while we're there, they have their people. So Nini and a couple other individuals that, for obvious reasons, I'm not going to touch on, right? They go off and they start talking. Well, the one that stayed behind was Víbora. Again, I didn't really know nothing about their structure, right? Sincerely, I knew they were considered themselves a gang, and it was a paisa gang or paisanos, and to me it was whatever, right? My respects. It could have been a gang of homies that were going against the green. It just didn't really matter, right? Either everything was gonna pull through cool, or it was gonna go up. Those were just the two options, right? Well, anyways, you would have stayed back. And you guys ever felt like when somebody's like deadlocked looking at you, and I feel like this cat is eye hogging me, He's looking at my tattoos, and I ain't even tripping, I don't want to start nothing that will lead to something negative against us, right? And anyways, they're over there doing their thing, talking, trying to square things off, whatever, for it to be peace. Because in the with this war, it was slowing down work for Sinaloa and for Juarez, So it was beneficial to come to an agreement. But it got to a point where I looked back and it was looking dead on in the back of my head. I mentioned it before, I have right in the middle in the back of my head, I have big the hecho Mexico eagle, but it's like stone, right? Made of stone. And then on top, I have brown on the bottom, pride, and then it sits on an SR, my neck, and the SR sitting on an Aztec 13. But he's looking dead on in the back of my head. So, when I catch him, it's like I got fed up and I told him, like, hey, como hay que, you like my tattoo or what? And he goes, you shouldn't have that. And I go, what you mean I shouldn't have that? And he goes, around here, whoever has that belongs to us, or else you can't have that, we take it off. And when he says, we take it off, I told him, I don't care what you do. I don't belong to whatever you think you're claiming, but go ahead, take it off, you know? And we got into, I'm not going to say words, it just became to a point where he says, everybody in Juarez knows you can't get that stamp without our approval. And I told him, first and foremost, I don't need your approval. You ain't nothing to me. I know what I belong to. And he kept going. I just took quiet. I just said, you know what? You ain't going to do nothing. There's no point to speak to you, right? And anyways, a lot of people, like I told before, minimize and Nini, right? That little guy, he looked funny, right? Like with a little bit of sugar in his tank, whatever. But he was a hog. Sincerely, he was a hog. And I don't know, between him and Huesos, they were the two main ones, right? Excuse me. Something must have gone wrong in the conversations, and he just pulled out and blew that fool. The minute he did that, I turned around and I hit this fool in the chest, right? With R15, that's what I had at the moment, and all hell broke loose. But they were no match because not only the gente nueva was there on the sidelines of this rancho, but a whole bunch of people that came down from Guzmanes, right? And I remember, and again, I'm not proud of this. It was just my head at the moment. But I remember I walked up to this fool, and he was still conscious, right? And I told him, what happened? You're not gonna take it off? And then I went off and told him, what I represented, and well, I just finished up, and we kept boogieing. Again, it was no match at all, you know. Them and the one that was setting everything up that got really upset was this fool that I later seen that it was a kid basically, right? This cat they called him Neto, he was busted, and in this ranch, Ahumada, there was about 15 other fools that got clipped. The rest ran. Out of all the three principal ones, all three of them got done, right? And anyways, later on, they wanted to have a meeting again, right? Because there was a misunderstanding from El Nini and Huesos. I guess Huesos was considered to be a lieutenant that was pissing out the bucket, if you guys know what that means. He was basically doing things behind the cartel, the faction he belonged, on his own to pull away. And they wanted another meeting, and I told him, hell yeah. But then they didn't allow me. They said, nah, Chino, you're gonna go first. You're gonna go to Veracruz. That's where I met the homie bouncer, and then you're gonna go support in Oaxaca, and that's how I would end up down south instead of what was going up north with not just the mexicles, with the Aztecas, La Linea, with all of them, right? It was an open war at the moment, and but since it was peace talks, I guess the mexicles were real serious about that stamp, that Hecho Mexico eagle, and I got it for my own reasons, right? My blood is Mexican, you know, but I did not put that Hecho in Mexico words because, I'm born in Santa Rosa. Instead, I put brown pride, but it's the whole back of my head, and they didn't want me to kick it off because I guess it hit the nerve with them. But anyways, they would end up going up there, and the work continued. That, if I'm not mistaken, it stopped just when everything picked up here in Culiacan when it comes to Zambadas and Chapos, right? Before that, Chapos was all up in there, or should I say El Nini. It was no Russos, it was no Rugrats. Now they control pretty much all that, right? Back then it was El Nini, he was controlling Sonora, some part of Chihuahua. He was he was really holding it down for the Chapos. I really think it was a big mistake for the Chapos to turn him in like that, because facts are facts. They turned him in to the government. They sent him home alone and they threw the government on him to get arrested. It's just how Mexico works. But anyways, I thought I would just share with you this part of my walk. That day I really could have my head blown off because, like I said, it was a feeling. This fool was mad dogging me, and if I would not reacted first, the minute I seen the main fools went south and the ones we were with responded like that, he would have probably acted on me. It's just one of them things, that even though I was doing negative stuff, definitely not godly things, God was there with me. Because, just as easily, he could have beat me to it and domed me, right? And again, it's for that ego. Till this day, I have never really looked into these cats or nothing, but I guess they're real serious when it comes to charras and that Hecho en Mexico stamp. Again, is not what I have, but when you're looking for anything to nitpick to take someone out, that's what you're gonna do, right? But anyways, I just thought I would share with you this personal experience I had with Chicles. For those that have been asking me, I didn't really get to know them. I get to meet Don Neto or that kid. I know he had a lot of jugo, right, from conversations. But me personally, I couldn't even tell you, that was the one and only time we had any type of crossings, and it went south. And thank you to the one above, not just me, but everybody that was with us that day. Besides one people got shot, but he pulled through. And it's again, you know, well, at least me, I went my whole life minimizing God, and it just took for me to sit down, reflect, and seeing that been always there, you know. And again, this into glorifying the things I've done or I was part of, because they have no value. Again, I was just one out of thousands. I mean, look what happened with the homie kid from Northside Bowling. You know, the homie Mono will later on get pretty much crippled, you know. And, well, I'll just end it, with the only good thing that came out of that, you know, Huesos, the main individual, had the famous 38. And I'll leave it at that, Hopefully, I'm able to go live tomorrow. I hope the backlash of chemo allows me to. But just for those that are known of revolution, think about a famous 38. Who did it belong to? It was famous for him to come out with it. With this said, please stay true to yourself and loyal to your loved ones.